We will go to action agenda. Item 12, action is necessary or appropriate on matters discussed in executive session. Do I have a motion, Mr. Lovelace?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the selected employment items, Exhibit A, for action.
Is there a second? Ms. Huddle seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, vote for that motion is 6-0. So that carries. And I will go to item 13. Do you have one?
Yes,
from
I have a motion.
Okay, from executive session.
Executive session. I move that we direct the district to establish a procurement review panel to conduct a debarment investigation of a vendor per section 4220 of the procurement code.
Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
I have to.
Oh, yes, you have to sorry. Is that a second, Ms.? Right, okay. Well, do we have any discussion? Got a second?
I have a comment. This resolution was emailed to the board last night at 8:30 when I was in bed and getting ready I just put my kids to sleep, and I had a full day of work. And so I haven't really there were 4 different attachments to this email that we received, and they are all interrelated. And they are all very serious in nature, and it is very apparent that a lot of time was spent in preparing allegations, documents, and I don't feel prepared to vote on this. Okay. I don't know that this is the right manner to handle this particular situation. I understand that it seems like there are decades worth of issues that are being tossed into all of this, into this matter, and I just don't think that Ms. Hammond.
Just not enough time.
I just don't think that there is enough time. I think that it is very serious. I understand that there are people on this board that do not agree with me, and that is okay. But I think that process matters. I think that that if we are going to make serious allegations, there needs to be somebody that says that there needs to be the information provided to the board, independent from one board member or a group of board members preparing information and then just sending it out as fact. So because I haven't been on the board but for a year, and because I'm not obviously in the loop with all of the things that have gone on in the last 10 or 15 years or maybe more recent than that, I just don't think that this was the proper way to handle this situation when you're attacking businesses or people that are dealing with our district. I just don't think that it's the right manner to do this.
Ms. Gardner.
I just wanted to point out that this is just a motion in order for us to begin a procurement panel, and I personally just was a part of a procurement panel for the district just about a month or 2 ago, and going into it, I knew nothing about the situation, which was probably better because I was one of the members that had to make a ruling on it. And so I don't personally, even though I got the same information late, I don't know that much either about the whole thing. I don't know all of the details, but I was on the board when some of this went down. But I think it's important to note that this is starting a procurement panel for them to investigate. It's not up to us to investigate and to fully understand everything that's happening, because otherwise we would already have our minds made up. So I think that we have enough information to decide whether or not we actually organize a procurement panel. That's what this motion is to do.
Okay, it's not saying innocent or guilty. And also, Ms. Huddle, my assumption was it doesn't go back 10 or 12 years.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
It goes back to 2018.
That's what I thought. 2018 to 2022.
And I agree with with Ms. Hans. I mean, you have to have a process, and this is the process per the procurement code, that if you, as a board, have a question, we're not making an accusation, we have a question, that the procurement panel is the way that that's handled per 4220. And I feel like as a board member, when we believe that there is an issue, we have a fiduciary responsibility to have it investigated.
To be sure the money was spent properly. Okay.
Ms. Hammond?
Yes.
I would just like to say for the record, I do agree with you, but there are also other things at play here where there are investigations. And this is trying to cover all of the bases, in my opinion, and I have a problem with that, and that's okay.
We appreciate your opinion. It's one of 7. Thank you. Anybody else, Ms. Hogan? Anybody want to weigh in? Anything else? Then no more discussion. We will vote. All those in favor of the motion? 4. Those opposed? 1. And Mr. Love has had to recuse himself. So the motion passes. And Ms. Huddle is right, and so was Ms. Gardner, about this is placing it in a process of a procurement committee that will look at what this is about and determine if anything was or was not done wrong. So I think we're doing our job. Thank you. Next. We can, oh, you're back. Okay. Anything else from executive session? That was number 12.
Okay, I have a motion for,
Well, I think yours is about the number 13, is it not?
no, that's, I don't have a motion
You
for
don't,
that.
yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
13 is approval of proposed financial advisor, and I would just like to say that as chair, I respect every person on this board, and it's not our fault that we're down to 6 because one person, resigned, and the reason you have an odd number is in a vote. And in that financial situation, I think this board did its very important due diligence on both sides, the 3 and 3, as we voted. And we were looking at our fiduciary responsibility. And I'm excited to say tonight that all of us, and especially as chair, I shared with both sides, because that 3-3 did not have a winner. And Dr. Ross has proven his leadership once again, and he has brought to us another person that I'm excited to hope, I don't know that, because we've got to have a presentation here, but I just am excited that he wanted to see a board brought together with that we could all agree on, because I felt very sad that night, because 3-3, there's not a winner. So, and this is so important. We have got so many things that need doing in this district, and we need that money, and we need to know we have the financial people in place, and I think he did his work. I think Marty Rawls did her work, and I'm just excited about seeing this presentation. Dr. Ross.
All right, I'll turn it over to Marty Rawls.
I'm excited to be here tonight to introduce you to Mr. David Moore, who represents PFM. It's a financial advisory services company located in Florida. However, they do a sizable amount of work here in South Carolina, and one of the largest, if not the largest, in the United States. So Mr. Moore is going to provide some information to you all, and we'll be happy to answer questions afterwards.
Thank you. You want to tell them your tie's not Clemson, or you want to say it is Clemson?
If I'm going to do that, I have to pull out my Auburn
I thought I'd
mask.
put you on the spot, make you feel welcome in South Carolina.
Thank you. Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Ross, thank you for letting me be here tonight. My name is David Moore. I'm a managing director with Public Financial Management, PFM Financial Advisors. I'll do a quick presentation. You've had a long day already, and there's still some to go. Just by introduction, my name again is David Moore. I've managed the South for PFM for a number of years and have stepped back from that so that I can focus on client work. The day-to-day contact, I team up and really work, we're interchangeable. The day-to-day contact, it would be Jay Glover, who unfortunately had a travel complication and could not be here tonight. He is a College of Charleston graduate, got an MBA from some school right around here that Auburn has beat many, many times. Sorry. Kidding. And anyways, Jay and I work together on multiple of our clients in the state, work throughout the Southeast, work with school districts, cities, and counties. And I'll move through that real quickly. Just by way of introduction to the firm, PFM is an independent financial advisor, was founded in 1975, and for the last 23 years has been the largest and most active financial advisor in the nation. Most relevant to you is our experience with school districts, and K-12 school districts. We also do higher ed, but K-12 in particular, both in South Carolina, around the South, and nationally. It really has been the hallmark, a significant piece of the firm from the outset. PFM has offices throughout the country so that we're able to draw on ideas, concepts that we hear in other areas of the country as finance and education is always evolving and they come together. We're able to pull those ideas into financings for our clients. Narrowing in on you all in the South, PFM started in the Northeast. The first three offices, Memphis, Atlanta, and Florida, were in the South once we moved out. And as you can see here, we have offices throughout the South and have been the leading financial advisor in the South for decades. And in South Carolina, we have a focus. When you see the clients that are listed here, we focus on clients that want and need help working on financial planning, primarily related to debt and for capital needs. And so we're selective. We work with them. We hope to work with them for very, very many years, just like we hope to work with you all. But again, our team is focused on work in South Carolina for many years. I'm going to hop through some of the pages and move right to what is most important to you, which is your upcoming opportunity and financing needs. On this page, we did a quick summary of all of your outstanding debt just to get our heads around it over the last week or so. In the middle of the page, or the second row in the chart shows bonds that were issued in 2012. Those have interest rates that in today's market, where interest rates are very low, creates an opportunity for you to obtain significant savings, $8 or $9 million in present value savings. And so we started with that, and then we began to, I'm going to hop through this rather quickly, and started to ask questions, and your needs focus on, for starters, addressing Irma High. We heard earlier a preliminary budget of $50 million. In addition to that, we heard about $15 million in annual maintenance and technology needs. One of the things we've learned listening to your meetings is you want to repay your debt quickly for a good reason. You have other needs over time, and you need to maintain as much flexibility in the use of your 8% debt. So we took those things into consideration as we put together a plan, and I'll wrap up here just about now. Essentially what we've done is a base case, and we expect to refine this as the phasing for the construction needs come in, but we put together a base case of $30 million towards the Irma project that would be funded next year. First, you're going to do the refinancing to take advantage of low interest rates. Then you would do that first financing. We view that as kind of the ceiling that you would get in the next year. As a practical matter, you may only need to get $9, $10, $15 million, again, depending on your expected timing of spending the funds, and you would get the rest of the money later. We built both financings into this graphic, and if you look at the line, that shows you how much revenue is generated by your current millage levy. The point in putting this graphic is to show that as you get further out in time, there's some space under that line to help you with your future needs. And we used very conservative revenue growth, so as a practical matter, you would expect to have more funds available. We can stop there. If you have any questions, we're glad to answer them, but I know you've got a long night.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Mr. Lovelace?
I looked at the situation, I think we discussed this, but it looked like we could, assuming that we could get all the drawings and all of the approvals that we needed quickly, which probably won't be the case, but assuming that, we could borrow in the first year somewhere around $25 million, and then in the second year, maybe 8.5, and 8.5 in the third, and whatever it took to finish out the $50 million in the fourth year. If we were able to borrow the funds in year one and during the design phase, and then borrow the 8.5, roughly, whatever that is, in the second phase, and that would give us around $34 million to start the project at Irmo High School. So then the phasing then would be around $15 million for the second phase if we have to do that. So is that a scenario that we could do?
I think first you want to, there was a lot of ifs
Yeah,
in there
there's a lot of
regarding the
ifs.
capital plan, so I don't want to get too far down the path. The key is, since you're using 8% debt, is that you have to maintain, if you're going to continually do $15 million a year for maintenance and technology, and you've got $45 or $46 million of 8% capacity, then the straightforward math is you can only have about $30 million outstanding for this project. And so you would need to get it issued and start paying it back immediately, or very, very quickly. What we ran is $30 million, which is about all you could do now. The timing for when you do the next tranches could be very quick, as you've laid out, or depending on the schedule, it may be better to wait till you actually need the money. The reason we did $30 million is with interest rates at extremely low rates. It may make sense to go ahead and borrow more now than you would otherwise.
That's what I was trying to what our thinking was to capture as much as we could, make the first phase, much larger than the second phase, and get this done quickly so that we can get the students of Irmo High School into a situation that, better, safer situation than we have now. So that's what I was hoping, is that we could capture those interest rates right now. So that was my basic scenario question.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We appreciate
Thank you.
that. We appreciate it very much. So, do I have a motion?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the contract with PFM Financial Advisors, LLC, with an initial term of 3 years, with an option to renew for successive 3 years, 3-year term, subject to board approval.
Is there a second? I see a second. Any discussion?
Ms. Hammond, I'd just like to make the comment for the benefit of our community that the fee structure that we were proposed was right on par with the lower end of the fee structures that we looked at with the other companies. Sometimes things happen for a reason, so maybe things all worked out. We'll see when we vote.
I'd like to comment too.
Thank you, Ms. Huddle. You always have a wise statement to make.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that from our previous discussion that and I think one of the folks that spoke to us tonight, but we didn't take. It's not fair to just look at the low dollar value of something if it wasn't done in accordance with our procurement code. So we didn't take that. I mean, and I think the board and Dr. Ross needs to be given, some credit for that.
I agree. Thank you. Told you he's an awesome leader. We're gonna make him blush. All right, let's take a vote unless there's any other question or statement. All those in favor? And that is 6-0. See, all things do work out for the best of the students of District 5. Number 14, all right, approval of proposed funding for 2022, 2023, and 2024 23-24 projects, Exhibit D.
Yep.
You got it.
Action item number 14, I make the motion that we approve the proposed funding for fiscal year 22-23 and 23-24 projects as shown in Exhibit D.
Is there a second? Ms. Huddle seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 6, and no opposed. So that motion carries. 15, adoption of a resolution to refund the 2012B callable bonds with a tax-exempt bond issuance, Exhibit E. And
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Ross, you have in front of you the resolution for us to proceed with calling the bonds, the 2012B bonds. It's limited to $70 million, maximum amount to issue, sale of not exceeding $70 million. And that would be using Burr Foreman and Ms. Franny Heiser, and PFM, Mr. Jay Glover and Mr. David Moore to execute this transaction.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Well, we'll have a motion and then if there's discussion, because it's an action. You have a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
I move that we adopt the resolution per Exhibit E to refund the 2012B callable bonds with a tax-exempt bond issuance.
Is there a second? Ms. Gardner seconds. Now, any questions for Ms. Rawls? And I see Ms. Heiser's back there if we need her. No questions? All those in favor? Raise your hand. 6 and 0. Thank you, Ms. Rawls. Item 16, second and final reading of proposed revisions to Board Policy FB Facilities Planning, Exhibit F.
I have a motion,
Okay.
Madam Chair. I make the motion that we approve under the second and final reading of proposed revisions policy FB Facilities Planning as shown in Exhibit F.
Is there a second? Ms. Gardner seconds. Any discussion? Any comments or discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? And that is 6. Mr. Hogan, was your hand up? I'm sorry. That's 6-0. It passes. Thank you. Second and final reading of new board policy FED, closeout of construction projects. Information initially included as revisions to existing board policy DIDIE, fiscal accounting-audits, given first reading on September 27th, 2021, Exhibit G. Dr. Ross, do you want to explain why we had to, because you had a good explanation for us.
Yes, Madam Chair, and to the members of the community for clarification, we started this out in a discussion in the policy committee about where it would best fit. As you would see, a lot of our policies, as you read through them, there are certain ones that will speak to, they'll be in a different section. I initially thought that policy DIDIE, which because it was an accounting policy, would best fit this. So under first reading or first reading, it was under DI/DIE. However, because we're talking about the same policy, legal counsel, we had a direction from Ms. Rebecca Blackburn-Hines to have legal counsel kind of review these, and we found that it was best suited under the facilities policy, and so it was we have a new name, a new label in our policy now, FED, because it's the same policy, it counts as second
I
review.
got you. Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure the public understood that.
I have a motion and a statement that was prepared if you...
Okay, and we'll do that, and then if there's any questions.
Okay. I make the motion that we approve under the second and final reading of proposed new policy FED, closeout of construction projects as shown in Exhibit G. Information initially included as revisions to existing board policy DIDIE, fiscal accounting and / audits, given first reading on September 27, 2021.
Let me get a second, then you can make your statement.
Okay.
Is there a second? Ms. Huddle seconds. Okay.
Okay, then Ms. Blackburn-Hines asked us to have the attorney review, which we did, and we discussed it at the Facilities Committee meeting, and I was given a statement here from our attorney. As some of you may recall, at the September 27th board meeting, the board gave first reading to an amendment policy DIDIE, which amendment provided for the district to employ an independent licensed architect or engineer whenever the district was closing out a project valued at $5 million or more. After first reading, we asked legal counsel to review the policy. She recommended that rather than amending policy DIE, the board should adopt new policy FED to cover that information. Based on that legal advice, the board is now adding that information to new policy FED. There are also some revisions to that information, which I will explain after the motion is made to approve policy FED. Because the contents of FED were previously shared with the public through the first reading, council has advised us that the board may now give second reading to FED.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions, statements, we'll vote. All those in favor? Okay.
I have questions. I appreciate that this was reviewed by council. And Mr. Lovelace mentioned that this policy was brought up at our Facilities Committee meeting on Wednesday. There was a motion made to amend the agenda to include this particular policy at the facilities meeting, and I'm gathering that it's because we're trying to vote on it tonight and push it through. I just have a couple of questions, if it's okay, for Mr. Beanbo and Mr. Cannon. I know we changed the policy that we had last time had a $5 million range, and I questioned the range at the last meeting, and I also questioned it when we first saw the policy in our policy meeting. All of the weeks are rolling together, but at the last policy meeting, I think the number was 3 million, and then we got into our meeting last time and it was 5 million, and then the motion was made to discuss policy on Wednesday, and at that time, the revised policy from council did not have a number, we brought that conversation up, and I'm kind of recapping what happened because not everybody was at the facilities meeting, so I'm just trying to get my train of thought out there. So I know that I questioned, well, now there's not a number at all. And it was kind of mentioned, well, you know, what could that number be? And I know, Mr. Beanbo, you threw out the number $1 million, which is significantly less than the other two numbers. And so my question is, do you still think that that is a good number? And by having a low number, is it going to overburden the facilities department to have to get a closeout professional for every single time that there is any kind of construction in the $1 million range or more? And the reason I was asking about the arbitrary number in all of these different meetings was because just from I'm not in construction like Mr. Lovelace, and so the frame of reference to me, is different than what it would be for him. And so I just want to make sure that the facilities department is behind this this particular policy and the way that it is written. And I know a comment that was made when I brought that up, and my concern about pushing this through is, one, I know that we have an RFP that is out that is very similar to what we're trying to do in implementing this policy. And I haven't heard whether or not anybody has responded to that RFP or RFQ. So that is a question that I do have. And whether or not we think that this number, because it seemed like you were put on the spot because we weren't prepared to talk about this policy at that meeting, or I wasn't. I'm assuming that you weren't, so I could be totally misspeaking. So can you provide me some clarity and feedback
Yes,
on that
ma'am.
number?
We do, to answer your first question, we are waiting for this policy to close out. We have a company that we will recommend after tonight.
You have a what?
We have a company that responded that we planned. The board request was to bring board approval for our recommendation for the closeout procedure. So we do have a recommendation that we will bring to the next board meeting. However, we wanted the second reading for this policy before we bring the RFP proposal to y'all. So we do have someone in mind that we're recommending to the board. So we'll close out for Piney Woods. So you'll have that at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers that question. Yes, ma'am. We started looking at, it helps us to have a consistency, and that was my goal for this, was to have a consistency when we do need to come to the board. We do want to be good stewards of the taxpayer money, so you start looking at arbitrary numbers, and $1 million is a lot of money. It will create a little work for us, but we do, when we're using taxpayer money, we do want to make sure we're getting everything that we're supposed to get. And this gives us an amount that we know, hey, we need to come to the board with it. There could be some projects that are less than this that we would come to the board if we see issues, but this allows us an amount that we know anytime we do any projects that we need to come to the board. So if we have roofs, if we have multiple trades working on a project, it would typically be, it could be $1 million, could be more, but we know that we probably do need a third-party inspection to close those out. So we're okay with this number, and hopefully we can bring, closure and make sure we've got the warranty work. We've got what we promised we were going to get, so this does help us to ensure that we're getting all the projects completed in a timely manner, and they're complete as they were promised to be. So I think it's a good policy.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Beatonbaugh. Kathy's got a question.
I noticed that I counted up while you guys were talking of the projects on the 2-year, the 22-23 and the 23-24, and I counted 4 projects that were over $1 million, and 3 of the 4 were roofs. And I know we have a problem with the roof at Chapin. And so while we're talking roofs, I heard that Piney Woods Elementary roof was leaking. Is that true? Last, I think, Thursday, when we had a lot of rain?
We had an issue. I don't think the roof was actually leaking.
Okay, there was a leak.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I guess, I think it's a very valid question, what the $1 million, but it seems like roofs cost over $1 million, and everything else pretty much is less. The only other item was the stadium. So I don't know if that allays any concerns or not, but it does seem to me that I'm kind of glad we reduced it, because we do seem to have problems with roofs. So this would mean that pretty much any major roof would probably get reviewed.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I thought $1 million was acceptable number to do that with.
Well, I think, too, when we know all the needs we have, every dollar counts. So I appreciate you lowering it.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you did the right thing.
I just had some things to say about that. I mean, we have a project right now ready to close out. Okay. It's not fair to the contractors or anybody else to drag that out. Okay. And we've gone out and done it properly, put an RFP for a closeout person. The reason that we did it on that particular facility, I think, was because that our facilities director, who was no longer with us at that time, he's come back, thank goodness, and he's a great guy. Yes. But we had a gap in there. Okay. Our facilities director was also on that project before he came with us, was an engineer of record. Okay. And so on that particular project, we have reason to do this. On the prior projects we've had from prior bond, the things have happened, and they're not hypotheticals. They're not hypotheticals. So, I mean, we need somebody to look at these things before we close them out, because what happens is we end up having to hire attorneys and all that, which we just don't need to do that. We need to close the projects out properly. We need to make sure we're protected with warranties and bonds and all. And there's no reason to delay doing this. I mean, we have a project right now that needs to be closed out. We have somebody in hand that is ready to, willing and able, and has bid the proper way. Now we need to give our superintendent the policy. We need to give him the tools to make this happen. So I don't
We'll take
see
a
any
vote.
reason to delay it.
Okay, Mr. Hogan.
We talked about this a little bit, Mr. Lovelace, I believe it was last Wednesday at the facilities meeting, and some questions that I'd brought up. I didn't know if we might have some answers on them yet. How is this going to correspond with contracts we currently have in place? And do we have a dollar figure as to how much this RFP is, not for this particular situation, but for your typical $1 million job, $1 million roof, how much the closeout professional is going to be? And are we currently paying for that, right? Is that currently built into the contract with what we currently have in place? And are we going to put ourselves in that position to where we have professionals arguing who's more professional?
Yes, sir. We have some contingency for our project that we'll use to pay for these funds. We have, as we interviewed the company that will make a recommendation to the board, we were concerned about the cost because it didn't say. So we had a meeting with them, and have expedited the process. I feel like we've done a very good job of interviewing the company the day after the process closed out. So their recommendation was it would be hourly, so we would approve the rate. Obviously, we don't have the authority to approve this according to the motion, so we'll have to let the board approve the company. And so we don't know that rate until you approve them. So we do not have that fee until after the board has approved them. So we do not know. As we have in our projects, we do have contingency. We try to build contingency. So that's the way that we'll anticipate paying for these vendors when we have third-party inspections. But we do not have a cost yet for Piney Woods closeout.
Is your hand up, Ms. Hines?
So we have to approve a contractor before we know how much they will cost?
Yes, ma'am. The motion was
That
by
doesn't
the,
make any sense.
Well,
Why-
the
I
board
mean,
can
there
make-
has to be an explanation for that. Why would we ever approve? I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know.
Well, there can be an amendment to, if that's a point we want to place in it. Mr. Meadmore, would you like that to be in there? Or I see Mr. Cannon coming to this. Yeah. What is your opinion about this motion having?
So the next board meeting, we would have a vendor would bring to y'all. Part of that would be part of their fee schedule and anticipated, cost to do that review, for instance, for a project like Piney Woods. So just to clarify, you would have that whole proposal, that you would vote on as a board.
So in other words, so you're looking, if I'm getting this right, this is just a policy, but then before we would pay somebody, they're going to have to come before us with that cost, and we would have to vote on that.
Absolutely. So
On
all you're voting on tonight is a policy.
Just this
Take the
general
vendor, take their process out of it. Y'all
I
are
got
voting on a policy tonight.
Okay.
And then, future board meeting, you would be presented with their proposal.
Okay. Mr. Hogan, does that help you?
Yeah, just for clarification, when you refer to the vendor, you're referring to we're looking for one individual, one company to work with us exclusively on projects. Are we looking at per project?
So what we did was we put an RFP for Piney Woods only.
Okay.
And so future board meeting, you would be brought that only. We did not send out an RFP for multiple projects. So, should the board approve that policy, we could then look at doing an RFP on a as-needed basis. That's something we'd have to work through. We could discuss at our next facility committee meeting. But what you would be brought is for Piney Woods only because that's what the RFP was for.
Well, that makes sense. That makes
Okay,
sense.
just so that I have this clear. We will know the fee structure and the amount that we will be obligated to pay when it is brought to the board. We are
Absolutely.
not going to vote on something that does not have a cost associated with it.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure that I got that right.
They would never bring us that kind of
we
stuff.
just can't award it until that. And we would like to bring for these projects, we would like to have an RFP to cover more than just one project in the
Right.
future. We would request that in the future.
Because the price of the job could easily be different depending on what it is and how much time it takes. Any other questions? But thank you for all that clarification. All right, all those in favor of giving them this policy? That is 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Beatonball. Now, I do have certification of delegates for the 2021 South Carolina School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, because we have to actually vote on the representatives to be, and I have to send this in by November 15th for a meeting that is actually December 4th, 2021, so we do have to vote on it. What I'd like to ask tonight is we get 6 votes. Now, there'll be 7 members when December comes, but there might be some of you that already know December 4th. You can't make that. But what I'd like to do is, if you think you can, I'd like your name to go on here tonight. So I would just like to know where you want to put this, because there are 6 of us tonight, but we'll be fair. I mean, you can still go to the convention, but you have to, they base it on the size of our district for you people that are new, and we get 6 votes. And so it doesn't mean you're not there and can't, even if 7 of us go, but usually 7 never go. So who for sure know they can get Mr. Hogan?
No, I'd like to nominate Rebecca Blackburn Hines as a delegate.
Oh, okay, yeah. I bet she'll want to go. Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Ms.
You really don't
Okay,
have,
all right,
you don't have to nominate.
Ms. Hammond.
I'm doing it like,
Take me off the list. I may be very sad that night, but I have tickets to the ACC championship.
Excuse me.
And I may be very sad. I may be looking to sell them to some Duke fans or Wake Forest or whoever else is there, but
don't you say that to those Clemson Tigers. Okay, so that's it. If everybody, usually this works out. Everybody that wants to go and be a voter get to vote, because we don't ever have 7 go. But Rebecca, I'm going to put your name down. I'm going to put Matt. Do you feel like you're going to get to go?
Put me down.
You need to go.
Yes,
New
ma'am.
members need to go for sure. I know Miss Gardner's going to go because she's our secretary and she knows everything and she likes to be in the know. Ken Lovelace, I know you need to go. I know, Kathy, I'm putting your name. You really have the tickets for that night? Is it that
I
night?
have 4 tickets. So anybody wants to go cry with me, just let me know.
She's got the tickets. And then, of course, like I said, we will offer it to whatever new board member is elected. They would have the same opportunity. I don't have to have these names in until November 15th. So we actually meet again, but they sent me this and they keep asking me if I've done it. Ms. Gardner?
Do we need a motion to?
Yes, we do. A motion that would, okay, and then if our next member wants, we'll just vote on that at the next meeting. Okay? So you want to make a motion that these will be the delegates? You want me to hand them to you?
Yep, I guess I make the motion that we approve Rebecca Hines, Blackburn Hines, Matt Hogan, Nikki Gardner, Ken Lovelace, and Jan Hammond as delegates for the 2021 SCSBA certification of delegates for the Constitution. And also, I move for, sorry, I'm doing this on the fly. Miss,
Oh, yes, but I'll
we need an alternate for Miss Hammond to be the alternate for any remaining votes.
That's usually what we do. I forgot. I'm glad you remember that. That is what you do. Thank you. You're going to do that. We got a second. You made it, Ms. Huddle? Second it? You're not going to change your mind, huh? Can't talk you into it. We'll call you that night. All those in favor of this group of delegates, raise your hands, and that is 6 and no opposed. And thank y'all. That's always an interesting convention.